Hey guys, my name is Denise Lord and I'm with something called the Overflow Leadership Journey. I'm really excited to be talking to you guys today so that I can tell you about an event that we're putting on for you guys called Momentum. Momentum is an event that's basically designed to help you guys process the life that you're currently in and kind of help you move forward into steps ahead. The event is going to be on February 26th. It'll start at 1:30 and go until 5:30 so that you have more than enough time to get back to community groups. But doors open at 1 o'clock so you'll have time for games and some fun snacks in between. If you have any questions at all, you'll be receiving a text message from your student leaders here soon, and you also will have a flyer from your house leaders to be able to grab as well. Thanks, guys.
Hey Ripple Effect, hope you guys are doing well. Some of you may know me, but for those of you that don't, my name's Taylor. I'm the Tsunami Coordinator, and I'm just excited to get to share the message with you guys tonight. We're in this series, Continuum. It's been really cool, and I just want to kind of get you guys up to date on where we've been and where we are tonight as we jump in. So everything started with God. He's the creator, and he creates this awesome world for us. And as you read it, it says God created everything good, and he made plants and he made animals, and it says he said it was good. But when it came to us as humans, it says something a little different. It says that we were very good, that God created us special. He created us unique, and he created us a little bit like him, which is an awesome thought. From there, we see Adam and Eve. They were the first man and woman. They're in the garden, and the devil takes an opportunity to tempt them, and they fall into sin. They kind of do the one thing that God said not to do is don't eat of this fruit, and they see it and it looks good and they decide to do it. And from this point on, sin enters the world. It kind of breaks loose, and we see it today. From when babies are first born, they cry and there's this need, and it's all about the consumption of what we want in our hearts. And as soon as this happened in the garden, from then until where we're going to be tonight in chapter 12, we just see human beings just messing up. They are making huge mistakes. They are failing, and God is watching, and he's looking. He's saying, this is the people that I made special. This is the one creation that I wanted to have a relationship with, that I made like me. And he's watching us do these things, and it is breaking God's heart. And it got really, really, really bad. And I don't think we really understand that a lot of times, that how much we pushed back against what God wanted for us at the very, very beginning. In Genesis 6, it says this in verses 5 through 8, "The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. So the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them all the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord." This is serious stuff. This is serious sin. This is sin that God looked at and said, listen, I regret even making you. I regret this. His prized creation, the ones that he loved, got to a point of regret. So thankfully, verse 8 is the way it is, because it says, but Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. And that is huge, because it was so bad it got to the point where God said, listen, I need to wipe everyone out. I need to have a reset, because this is not what I intended. But thankfully, he found favor in Noah. He saw Noah, and again, we don't really know why. He was a righteous man, and God said, listen, I'm going to use you to bring things back to the way I have planned from the beginning. Later, we see that in chapter 12 with Abraham. When we're first introduced to him, his name is just Abram, and it says this in verse 1. The Lord had said to Abram, leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. And this is kind of a big deal because of the state of where we were with God at that time. All of a sudden, God shows up to Abram, and there's nothing unique about him. There's nothing special, and we don't really know why God chose him. All of a sudden we know he's there, and God says, hey, I want you to leave your people and your house and just go to the land I have for you. And the crazy thing is, he says yes. He just says yes to God. And so many times I think that's where we get hung up, is we want to know why and what God is doing, and we want to make sure we're good with him, when a lot of times God comes to us and has a direction for our lives, and he just wants us to be able to say, yes, God, we want to go where you have for us. He goes on in the next verses to say, I will make you into a great nation and will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all the people on the earth will be blessed through you. Now, there's a lot going on in here, and quite honestly, don't completely 100% know what all of it means. But God was saying pretty much to Abram, listen, I'm with you. I'm going to make a promise with you that will stay forever, not just to you, not just to your immediate family, but to your kids, that no matter what comes your way, that I will be with you. And God did that. He followed through with what he said. God made Abram a promise, an amazing promise, even though humanity was kind of doing their own thing, and they didn't deserve it. So the next few chapters, we just kind of follow along with Abram and his story, and God talks to him a few times, but we want to pick up in chapter 15, verse 5, where God comes back to Abram and says, look up at the heavens and count the stars. If indeed you can count them, then he said to him, so shall your offspring be. And this is just kind of a reminder to Abram of the promise that God made. He's, like I said, just going through the story, living his life. They're growing up, and things are happening. And Abram probably remembers, God said that he would bless my family. He said he would bless my descendants and our nation, and those that were against me would be cursed. And God says, hey, just want to remind you, Abram, that I promised this to you, and I'm going to follow through with it. And Abram's just kind of doing his own thing. He's not focused on this. He's not, hey, God, you remember what you told me? Can I cash in on that? Or God, what do you have for me? But God initiates this thought again, saying, listen, I made this promise, and it's dependent on me completing it in your life. So what happens next? Genesis 15:6 says, Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. And this is a big deal. Like, this is a small verse that's kind of in the middle of his story. But this is where kind of Abram takes the next step and says, yeah, okay, I remember you promised this stuff to me. And he takes a step out and believes the Lord. This is a great picture of us as Christians. I remember when I decided that I was actually going to give my life to Christ and make a commitment to follow him. I remember I was in the library in like first grade, and I was given an opportunity to accept Jesus into my heart. And I had no idea what that meant or what it means. And I remember going up and just saying, yes, I want God in my life. And I remember I lived my life kind of really the same for a number of years until I went to snow camp one year. And one of my good friends was in a group, and he said, I realized during this retreat that my life is about what God has done for me and living life for him. And at that moment, I kind of connected to what God wanted to do with my life, the promise that he had made, even back here, that we would be blessed. And all Abram had to do was believe. This is a wonderful picture that takes the pressure off of us as Christians to take that step and say, God, we believe in what you want to do. We believe that you have a plan for us, that we are your creation. And yes, God, we have messed things up for a long time, and we've pursued the things that we've wanted in our hearts, God. And God, we understand, God, that you are fighting for us and you are fighting for our hearts. And that promise that you made is still good to today. And I don't know where you're at, but I do know that today, as a high school student, that some of you probably need to hear that no matter how you feel about your relationship with God, no matter where you think you are at this exact moment, that if you have put your faith in him and you believe in him, that he is working in your life and he has a plan for you. And it's not about you earning it. It's not about you being good enough to just get there and receive what God has, but it's about you taking the step and saying, God, I believe it, no matter what it is. God, I want to be and I want to receive it. I think it's important to remember in this story is that Abram really hasn't promised God anything. He didn't initiate this, that God approached him. God said, hey, I want to bless you. And it got to a point where God reminded him and Abram said, I'm going to believe and see what this is about. But really, Abram hadn't promised anything. He didn't deserve this. It was God looking down on his creation and finding favor in a man and saying, I want to do this through you because I made you precious and I want to restore that relationship. When I began to understand this as a follower of Christ, that Christ is the one that pursues us, that he pursues our hearts, it kind of changed everything for me. The story of the prodigal son and the pursuit, the way the father stands on the porch and waits for his son to return, and the way when he sees him, he runs, he doesn't wait. All of these things, the perspective that my favor and standing with my Creator was initiated with what God wanted for me, with the way he loved me, has really changed the course of my life. I now wake up on a daily basis not trying to earn anything that God has for me. I now wake up because God has made a promise to me as a believer that I am his, and that promise is good because I believe, not because of the way I perform on a daily basis. And it's still a struggle. As a youth pastor, as someone that works in a church, there are days where I wake up and I want to pursue the desires of my heart, and I am fighting for the things that I want to do. And it's so hard to just say, God, I believe you, and I believe that you are the one that are pursuing me, and God, I believe in you. There is such a freedom that comes with just releasing our standing with God into his faithfulness to us. Because I know that I constantly fail, I constantly struggle, but his promise has never changed, no matter how much I run to the things I want to do. So my question for you tonight is, how do you relate to God? Are you so concerned with what you have to offer in your relationship that you feel like it's all dependent on you and you're losing bargain chips every time you make a mistake, every time you mess up? Or are you dependent on God? Are you in Abraham's shoes and saying, God, you initiated this. God, you pursued my heart. And God, I'm going to believe and put my faith and trust in you. God, I'm going to rely on your promise, not the promise that I made maybe when I was in middle school, maybe when I was in high school. But God, I'm relying on the promises you made even back then, even back in Genesis, that when we saw that you created us special, that you had a plan for our lives, and we have an important role to play in your story.